I never liked surprises, but that day I wanted to be different. It was a bright Wednesday afternoon, and I had just finished my errands early. Derek had called earlier, complaining about skipping breakfast and having back-to-back meetings. So I thought, why not bring him lunch? Something small, something thoughtful, something a good wife would do. I stopped by his favorite Thai place, grabbed the spicy shrimp noodles he loved, and even got a little fortune cookie for fun. I remember smiling the whole way there, thinking he'd hug me, maybe kiss me on the forehead like he always did. Maybe we'd sit on the office couch and eat together. I imagined him lighting up when he saw me. I wish I had turned the car around. When I got to his office building, the receptionist smiled at me. She knew me. I'd been there a dozen times before. I told her I didn't want to disturb his meeting. "I'll just walk in and leave it on his desk," I whispered. She nodded, gave me the usual go-ahead, and I walked quietly down the long hallway. As I approached the door, I heard giggling. I paused. It was a woman's laugh. Soft, playful, familiar. My stomach sank. I pushed the door open slowly. I wasn't prepared. I wasn't ready. There she was. Tasha. My sister. My own blood. Straddling my husband in his leather chair, her hands tangled in his hair, his shirt half unbuttoned, their lips crushed together like they couldn't get enough. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The takeout bag slipped from my fingers and hit the floor with a soft thud, but they didn't even notice. I stared as they kissed like teenagers. No shame, no hesitation. I felt the floor tilt beneath me, and then, as if things weren't bad enough, I heard her laugh again. She pulled back and said, "She still thinks you're faithful. God, you're good at this." He smirked and whispered, "She's clueless." That was it. That broke something in me. I stepped forward. My shoes clicked softly against the floor. That's when Derek looked up. His eyes widened. "Vanessa." I raised my hand. I didn't want excuses. I didn't want tears. I didn't want explanations. I looked straight at the two people I loved most in the world, my husband, my sister, and I said only 5 words. "You two deserve each other." That was it. No screaming, no crying, just those words. I turned around, walked out, and I didn't look back. As I stepped back into the hallway, my heart didn't break. Not yet. It was quiet. Too quiet. The pain hadn't hit me. Not fully. I was numb. My body moved like it was on autopilot. Down the hall, past the receptionist, into the elevator. The doors closed. Then came the first tear, and the second. And then I was sobbing. In that moment, my world had changed. Everything I knew, everything I trusted, gone in a blink. My own sister, my own husband. I didn't know what I'd do next. I didn't have a plan. I just knew one thing for sure. I was done being the woman who stayed silent. They say love makes you blind, but I wasn't blind. I just trusted too much. Derek and I met at a community outreach event downtown. He was helping run a fundraiser for youth education, and I was volunteering with my company. He was charming, kind, and full of ambition. We exchanged numbers over paper cups of warm lemonade and talked for hours under the city lights after the event ended. 6 months later, we were engaged. A year after that, we were married. Everyone said we were perfect together, and for a while, we were. Derek built his consulting business from the ground up, and I supported him every step of the way. I wasn't just his wife, I was his cheerleader, his sounding board, his late-night coffee runner when he worked overtime. We dreamed of traveling the world one day, buying a house in Napa, starting a family. Tasha, my younger sister, always said she admired our relationship. She would visit often, especially after her engagement ended 2 years ago. Her ex, Jacob, had cheated on her. She was heartbroken, and I offered her a place to crash whenever she needed it. She started coming by almost every weekend, then weekday evenings. I never minded. She was family. I'd cook while the two of them sat in the living room, laughing over silly memes or binge-watching shows. I'd come out with plates of food and see them sitting a little too close, but I brushed it off. I was the one wearing his ring, after all. I was his wife. Looking back now, I remember little things I ignored. Tasha started borrowing my clothes, sometimes without asking. At first, it was cute. She'd twirl around and say, "You always have the best taste." But then she'd start borrowing my perfume, my heels, even my bathrobe. I told myself she was just trying to feel better, heal. I noticed she always made a point of complimenting Derek. "You're so lucky to have a man like him," she'd say. "Smart, handsome, successful." She once joked, "If only I'd met him first." We all laughed, even me. There were other signs too, things I only now recognize as pieces of a bigger picture. One night, I walked into the kitchen late and found Tasha and Derek deep in conversation. They went quiet when I entered. Derek said they were talking about something personal, and Tasha looked nervous. I didn't press. Another time, I found a wine glass in the sink when I hadn't had any. Derek said he had one while working late, but I remembered only buying 3 glasses in that set. 2 were in the cabinet. 1 was in the sink. So who had the other? Again, I said nothing. Maybe I didn't want to believe it. Maybe I couldn't. Tasha had always been dramatic growing up, yes, and sometimes self-centered, but she was my sister. The same little girl who shared a bunk bed with me, who cried when I left for college, who brought me ice cream when I got dumped in my senior year. She wouldn't hurt me. Not like that. Right? My mother once told me, blood doesn't always mean loyalty. I wish I had listened. Derek started working later hours, saying his company was taking on new clients. I was proud of him. I'd pack him food, leave little notes in his laptop bag. Once, I surprised him with a note that said, "I believe in you." He texted me back a simple thanks, no heart, no emoji, just that. The warmth was fading, and I could feel it. But still, I stayed. I fought harder. I thought every couple went through rough patches. I didn't want to be one of those people who doubted their marriage over small things. Besides, Tasha was hurting. I was her big sister. I had to be there for her too. I was trying to hold everything together. And for a while it looked like it was working. But sometimes when you hold things too tightly, they shatter anyway. I don't know when the shift happened exactly, but once it did, I couldn't unsee it. It started with small things, tiny, out-of-place moments that left me uneasy. I brushed them off at first, thinking I was just tired, overthinking, maybe even insecure. But deep down, something in me had started to stir. One afternoon, I came home early from work and found Tasha lounging on my couch in my silk robe. Not one that looked like mine, my robe. The one Derek gave me for our anniversary, embroidered with a little V on the collar. She was sipping from a wine glass, watching one of those steamy reality shows. I stood there frozen. "Tasha," I said, trying to keep my voice even, "why are you wearing my robe?" She didn't flinch. "Oh," she laughed, waving a hand. "I got cold. Yours was just on the door." Mine, not a spare one. Mine. I didn't push it. I didn't want to be the dramatic sister who overreacted, but the knot in my stomach wouldn't go away. Then came the credit card charges. I checked our joint bank account one evening, looking for a refund from a return I'd made. Instead, I saw a $147 charge from a high-end boutique. I hadn't bought anything there. I asked Derek if he had. "No," he said, barely glancing up from his laptop. "Must have been you." I let it go, but I started paying closer attention. That week, I saw 2 more purchases, one for perfume, another for lingerie. I didn't say a word, but I knew I hadn't bought them, and I knew Derek hadn't either. Tasha had mentioned a sale at that same boutique a few days earlier. I tried not to jump to conclusions. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe she just borrowed my card by accident, though she'd never asked for it. But the more I watched, the more I noticed. She'd walk past Derek and brush his arm, laugh just a little too hard at his jokes. Once, I saw her come out of the guest bathroom wearing a towel that barely covered her chest, right as Derek walked by. "Oh, I didn't know anyone was home," she giggled. I wanted to scream. Instead, I forced a smile. I told myself to relax, that I was seeing shadows where there was no light, that I couldn't be that woman, the one who becomes paranoid over nothing. But I was becoming her. One evening, my mom came by for dinner. She watched Tasha closely as she helped set the table, her eyes narrowing just slightly every time Tasha spoke. Later that night, after Tasha left early claiming a headache, my mom stayed behind to help with dishes. "She's getting too comfortable here," my mother said gently, drying a plate. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying not to sound defensive. She shrugged. "I just hope she remembers this is your home, your marriage." That stuck with me. My mom never said things without meaning. The final nudge came from Marcus, Derek's business partner and longtime friend. He and I had always gotten along. He was loyal, kind, and never once crossed a line. So when he pulled me aside after a company event one evening, I listened. "Vanessa," he said carefully, "I don't want to cause problems, but I think you should keep your eyes open." I asked what he meant. He hesitated, then said, "Just trust your instincts. Sometimes people closest to us aren't who they seem." He didn't say names. He didn't have to. That night, I sat on the edge of our bed while Derek snored softly beside me, and I stared at the ceiling. The silence in our room was louder than ever. I remembered all the little moments, the looks, the awkward silences, the too friendly smiles. I wanted to be wrong. God, I wanted to be wrong. But in my heart, I knew. Something was deeply, deeply off. I'd spent weeks trying to ignore the signs. Weeks pretending things were fine, that maybe I was overthinking it, that maybe my sister was just too familiar, and my husband was just too tired to notice. But the truth kept pulling at me like a thread I couldn't ignore, so I stopped pretending. One evening, Derek was out working late again. I sat on the couch scrolling through my phone when a message popped up. "Marcus, can we talk?" A few minutes later, we sat across from each other at a quiet corner cafe near my office. His eyes were filled with hesitation, but also concern. Genuine concern. "I don't want to overstep," he began, his hands folded around a cup of tea. "But something's not right. I've worked with Derek for years. I know him." I nodded slowly, letting him speak. "He's been acting off," he said, "coming in late, ducking calls, snapping at staff. And your sister, she's been around the office a lot lately, way more than before." I swallowed hard. "She says she's helping with marketing," Marcus continued, "but no one asked her to. And Derek doesn't seem to mind. If anything, he encourages it." I looked down at my hands, my fingers tightening into fists. Marcus leaned forward. "I don't want to hurt you, Vanessa, but you deserve to know what's going on." And that's when it clicked. The wine glass, the perfume, the awkward silences, the robe, the giggle I heard behind closed doors. It all started making sense. I took a deep breath. "What if I just showed up?" He blinked. "To the office?" I nodded. "Unannounced. Bring him lunch. No heads up. Just walk in and see what I find." He paused for a moment, then said quietly, "I think that's a good idea." The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. My hands were shaking as I packed Derek's favorite lunch, spicy shrimp noodles from the Thai place down the street. I added a fortune cookie, like I always did. But this time, I wrote my own fortune inside. It read, "Truth always finds its way out." I placed it in the bag, zipped my jacket, and drove toward his office. The streets were calm, the sky cloudy. My heart pounded so loudly I could feel it in my throat. I parked a block away and sat in the car for a full 5 minutes. My fingers gripped the steering wheel. part of me wanted to drive away, pretend nothing was wrong. Go back home, light a candle, and wait for Derek to come home like always. But I couldn't do that anymore. I walked into the building. The receptionist smiled at me like she always did. "Hi, Mrs. Collins," she said warmly. "Hey," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Just bringing Derek lunch. He's in?" She nodded. "Yep, just got in about 15 minutes ago." "Great," I smiled. "I'll just head back." She didn't question it. She never did. As I walked down the hallway, the familiar scent of office coffee and fresh paper filled the air. I passed by a row of offices, then turned the corner toward Derek's. And that's when I heard it. Laughter. Soft, playful, familiar. It was her. Tasha. I froze for just a second. My grip on the lunch bag tightened. My stomach turned, but my feet kept moving. I reached the door. It was slightly open. I pushed it gently. That moment. That image. It burned into my brain the second I saw it. Tasha, Derek, together. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I stood there, just watching. Everything I had been trying to ignore was now right in front of me. No more doubt, no more wondering, no more hoping I was wrong. It was all true. The people I loved most had betrayed me in the worst way. And in that second, something inside me changed. I didn't scream, I didn't beg, I didn't ask why. I just stood there watching the two people who meant the world to me destroy it with their bare hands. And then I said 5 words. 5 words I never thought I'd say in my life. "You two deserve each other." Tasha froze. Her hands were still on Derek's shoulders. Derek stammered, reaching for me, but I had already turned and walked out. My legs carried me down the hallway like I was floating. I didn't feel the ground beneath my feet. I didn't hear anything. I don't even remember if the receptionist tried to speak to me. I got into the elevator, pressed the button, and let the silence wrap around me. But the moment the doors closed, my hands began to shake. My chest ached. Tears I didn't even realize I was holding in started falling, hot, fast, and unstoppable. I didn't go home. I couldn't. I drove to a nearby park and sat there in my car for what felt like hours, just breathing, just existing. And then I turned off my phone. For 3 days. No calls, no messages, no explanations, just silence. When I finally turned my phone back on, the first thing I saw were dozens of missed calls. From Derek, from Tasha, even from my mother. There were texts from friends, coworkers, and numbers I didn't recognize. Then I saw it, a video, a short shaky video, from someone in the office. It showed Tasha and Derek, mid-kiss, mid-laughter, and then me standing in the doorway, frozen. You could hear Derek say, "She's clueless." You could hear Tasha laugh. You could hear my 5 words. And you could see me walk out like I didn't have a single tear left to give. The video had gone viral. Hundreds of thousands of views in just one day. Apparently, someone from the marketing department had been testing the new internal camera system. It had accidentally captured the entire thing, and someone leaked it. Now the whole city knew. Everywhere I went, people looked at me with wide eyes, some with sympathy, some with shock. At the grocery store, the bank, the gas station, even the mailman gave me a strange look that said, "Are you the one?" Derek tried everything. Calls, emails, flowers at my mom's house, apologies left on my voicemail that sounded more panicked than sincere. Tasha was silent at first. Then she messaged me. "Please, can we talk? I didn't mean for any of this to happen." I stared at the screen. Didn't mean for it to happen? She planned it. She pursued him. She let it go on for months, maybe longer. And now that the world saw them for what they were, she was sorry? No. They weren't sorry for what they did. They were sorry they got caught. The fallout was brutal. Not for me, but for them. Derek's clients began pulling out. His biggest contract dropped him, citing reputation concerns. Tasha, who had just landed a job at a luxury lifestyle brand, was let go the same day the video went viral. Her name was everywhere, Twitter, Facebook, even morning talk shows. My mother was devastated. She kept saying, "I raised them better than this." She barely spoke to Tasha now. The house was quiet. As for me, I stayed silent. I didn't make a statement. I didn't respond to the press. I didn't take interviews or post anything online. I just stayed still. Because sometimes silence is the loudest response. And in that silence, something inside me began to heal. I wasn't embarrassed. I wasn't weak. I had nothing to be ashamed of. They broke something beautiful, but they did it in public. And now the world saw their true faces. I didn't have to scream. The world screamed for me. A week passed, then 2. I didn't hide, but I didn't chase attention either. I stayed with my mother, quietly picking up the pieces of my life one by one. Morning walks, hot tea, deep breaths, and silence. Beautiful, healing silence. But the calls never stopped. People wanted to hear my side. News anchors, bloggers, women's magazines. Even a talk show host's assistant left a voicemail. But I didn't answer any of them. Then came the invitation. An exclusive, live-streamed sit-down hosted by a well-known relationship therapist and media personality. She wanted to create space for healing, honesty, and growth. At first, I laughed. What healing? What honesty? Growth for who? But something about the timing felt right. And I realized I wasn't afraid of my truth. I wasn't the one who should be hiding. So I agreed. I asked that both Derek and Tasha be invited. They agreed. Probably thought it was their chance to control the narrative. Maybe even spin it to save their reputations. I showed up in a simple navy dress, clean makeup, hair pulled back, no drama, no sparkles. Just me. Derek wore his usual smug suit. Tasha tried to look soft and pitiful, like a victim of her own poor choices. She wore light makeup and a pale pink dress that made her look younger. Innocent. That had always been her trick. The host welcomed us and introduced the segment. When Family Betrays Love, the story that broke the internet. The cameras rolled. I waited. They spoke first. Derek started with a tired apology. What happened wasn't right. I wasn't thinking clearly. There was a lot going on in our marriage, and I made a mistake. A mistake? Tasha chimed in. I never meant to hurt my sister. I was going through a really dark time, and Derek was there for me. Things got blurred. I nodded slowly. My turn? I asked. The host gestured for me to speak. I took a small breath, looked at them, then into the camera. For months, I doubted myself. I blamed myself. I thought maybe I wasn't enough. But what I've learned is, it had nothing to do with me. This was never about love or weakness. It was about selfishness, arrogance, and entitlement. I paused, my voice calm, my hands steady. I brought receipts, I added, reaching into my purse. I pulled out a small binder. Inside were printed emails, screenshots, phone records, all carefully dated. Tasha's fake pregnancy from years ago, something she had used to trap a man. The same pattern, the same behavior. The host blinked, surprised. The crew leaned in. I laid out everything. The boutique purchases on my card, the video time-stamped to prove how long it had all been going on, and even a note I had found in Derek's briefcase weeks before, written in Tasha's handwriting. A love letter. Derek's face drained of color. Tasha looked like she'd swallowed a stone. I didn't just come here to clear my name, I said. I came to reclaim it. I turned to the host. I'm starting a foundation, one for women who've been betrayed, not just by partners, but by family. We're calling it the Silent Strong. We'll offer free counseling, legal support, and community healing resources. The host clapped. The audience, watching live, lit up social media with support. Derek looked like he wanted to disappear. Tasha sat frozen, lips trembling. I turned back to them one last time. You thought you ruined me? I said. But all you did was set me free. That was it. No yelling, no tears, no begging, just truth. My truth. I walked off that stage with my head held high. Not because I won some battle, but because I walked through fire and came out whole. After the interview aired, I didn't expect the world to care, but they did. Messages poured in from strangers across the country, women, men, even teenagers, saying they saw themselves in my story, saying they admired how I stayed calm, how I took control without turning bitter. But I didn't do it for admiration. I did it for clarity, for peace, for me. The fallout came fast. Derek's firm collapsed within weeks. His biggest investors backed out. Clients severed ties. No one wanted their name associated with the man who cheated with his wife's sister. That was the headline now. Even his partner, Marcus, resigned. His name became a warning, a cautionary tale of ego and betrayal. Tasha tried to bounce back, but the internet never forgets. Job offers stopped. Collaborations were canceled. Her social media became a graveyard of old pictures and unanswered comments. She posted a vague apology once, but by then, no one was listening. Our mother, Evelyn, was heartbroken. She still saw Tasha as her daughter, but she couldn't look at her the same. She told me, "I lost 2 people that day, but I won't lose myself trying to fix them." She was right. For a while, I kept things simple. I moved into a modest apartment on the quieter side of town. I bought a new couch, painted the walls a soft cream, burned candles every night that smelled like eucalyptus and lavender. Peaceful things. I slept better, deeper. My body stopped flinching at every message notification. I started working again, slowly at first, then more confidently. I was still me, still capable, still worthy. The silent, strong foundation took off faster than I imagined. We held our first support circle in a tiny room behind a library. 6 women showed up. By the 3rd week, there were 25. They cried, laughed, held each other. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged somewhere, not as someone's wife or someone's sister, but as Vanessa. Just me. People started inviting me to speak at workshops and events. Not as the betrayed wife, but as a woman who rose above pain, who made something good from something horrible. It felt good to be seen that way. One rainy afternoon, I got a letter. No return address. Just a folded sheet of paper inside. It read, "I was wrong. I was selfish. I thought he loved me, but I was just a placeholder. You were always the one he admired. I ruined the only real family I had. I'm sorry. T." I didn't cry. I didn't reply. I folded it, placed it in a drawer, and went on with my day. Some people wait years for an apology, but I'd already made peace long before that envelope arrived. Derek called once. I didn't answer. He sent a message that read, "Can we talk?" I deleted it without reading the rest. I wasn't angry. I didn't hate him. I just didn't care anymore. And that was the biggest freedom of all. One evening, I stood on my balcony, watching the city lights flicker like fireflies in the distance. I thought about everything I'd been through, everything I'd lost, and everything I'd found. I didn't need revenge. The city had already spoken. They judged them and cleared me. But more importantly, I forgave myself for not seeing it sooner, for loving too blindly, for holding on too long. I looked up at the night sky and whispered quietly to myself, "This is what peace feels like." And finally, it was enough.